Welcome to Us Crazy Christians, where we uncover Christian myths and misinterpretations with common sense Christianity. I'm your host, William E. Smith, and today we're going to do part 2 of Should We Forgive? Stick around. So we left off the last video with my mom lying on the kitchen floor and my stepfather with his knee in her chest and a gun in her bloody mouth. Before we pick up right where we left off, do me a favor right quick, hit the like button. When you hit the like button, it makes me look good with YouTube and they share my video with more people so more people can be blessed by this message. If you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're a returning guest and haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Plus, hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we post a new video. Now let's get into it. If you haven't seen part 1 of Should We Forgive, no worries, I'll attach a link to that video at the end of this video. Now let's get into it. Now remember, Pastor Stunson snuck my brother and I out of the house while my mom was lying on the kitchen floor with the gun in her mouth. And honestly, I don't know how Pastor Stunson knew we were in danger or how he got into the house, and I actually didn't really care. I was just so happy that he had rescued us and that he came. But my assumption would be that my mom heard my stepfather threatening to kill us and called the pastor and then went and unlocked the front door before she came into the kitchen area to try to rescue us from my stepfather. So like I said in the last video, although Pastor Stunson, his wife Evelyn, and their son Larry went out their way to try to make us feel comfortable and at home and just take care of us, I still was on edge. I still was nervous and afraid because I still did not know if my mom was dead or alive. I also didn't know if my stepfather would, after he killed my mom, come looking for us, eventually kill us and kill the pastor as well. I didn't have any confidence that my pastor could stop my stepfather. Later that night, pastor came into the room and he said that he had talked to our mom and she was okay. But I still was nervous because I hadn't talked to mom and I didn't know how bad or what shape she was in, how bad she had been beat up. I asked the pastor if we could live with him, and he said yes. My mom called so we could speak to her later that night, and I was glad to hear from her. She sounded completely normal. But my joy quickly turned to sadness when she said, "We coming to get y'all." I said, "Mom, he just tried to kill us and you. Come over here with Pastor. He said we can stay here. You'll be safe." She giggled and said, "It's okay, baby. He apologized." At this point, I was almost in tears over the phone talking to my mom. I said, "Mom, he always says that, and then he does it again." But she tried to reassure me that it would never happen again, that he promised. And she was absolutely wrong. He kept beating her and us. That day changed my relationship with my mother. It changed how I view her, how I saw her. From that day forward, I began to look at my mother as more of a big sister as opposed to a mom, and sometimes just as a sister. I began to question my mother's love for us. And although my mother never did abuse us, she did allow it. The odd thing is, in my struggle to forgive, I found it much harder to forgive my mom than it was to forgive my stepdad. And although, like I said, my mom never physically abused us or abused us, period, my stepfather did. I knew to my stepfather I was nothing more than a little light-skinned bitch. But I believed my mom loved me. So how could she allow us to go through that over and over again for so many years? I eventually forgave my mom as well, but it was difficult. The English poet William Blake said, "It is easier to forgive an enemy than to forgive a friend." That's sad, but true. My little brother, fed up with the abuse, he left home before I did. I, on the other hand, just kept myself busy. I stayed in church. Every time the doors was open, I was there. I was in choir rehearsal, Bible study, youth choir, youth Bible study, rap, and I was doing gospel rap. I was in different plays, just keeping myself busy. Trying to be away from home as much as I could. Till one day when I was 16, my stepfather was outside working on his car. and he asked me to come out and do something for him. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but whatever it was, I did it wrong. So he cussed me out and reached in his pocket to grab his knife. I started to run, and he threw the knife at me, and it went right past me and stuck in the ground, in the grass. And I just kept running. He picked up a hammer and started chasing me down the street, saying he was gonna kill me, he was gonna find me and kill me. I immediately went up to my job. I was working at Burger King on Grand River near Greenfield. I went up to Burger King, told my boss I had to quit. I said, my father tried to kill me. I don't want him to catch me up here in Burger King. And so I got my last pay, and I left the job and went up to the church and stayed up there at the church for several days with Bob Sundberg. And he was working on the bathroom at the church, like doing the floors and the sinks and making it look nice. I just stayed up there with him all day and night, and we'd work on the bathroom together and try to fix it. The church that was at Evangel Ministries on Stansbury and Grand River. Until a few days later, I moved into with two friends of mine who had their own place, Derek Smith and Edgar, and I feel so bad I can't remember Edgar's last name. And I moved in with them, and I kept going to school and eventually graduated, and I stayed there with Edgar and Derek. I stayed away from mom and stepdad for years, mainly just talking to my mom on the phone. Years later, after I was married with kids and had forgiven my mother, I began coming around more often with my own family. By this time, my stepdad was in bad health from years of drinking and diabetes, and I was a lot bigger and stronger, but we had no beef anyway. I had forgiven him, years had passed, I was moving on with my own family. Some years later, after my stepfather passed, my mom and I got into a conversation about that period of time in our lives. And I was able to see the situation from her viewpoint. And from her viewpoint, my stepfather was the lesser of two evils. There were a lot of issues and serious problems that her marrying my stepfather ended or solved for her and us. And for the record, he wasn't always abusive. We did have fun times. We did go on trips and vacations. We did finally have clothes to wear to school, and we were provided for. We had food on a regular basis. A lot of things that we didn't have before he came. He protected us from predators outside the home. And there were a lot of those before he came. A lot of things were going on in our lives, but I was too young to really see them at the time until I had this conversation with my mom, and then I could reflect back and remember some things, and I can see how she could. And because I was so young, I couldn't put that together, and I didn't see all the things she saw. I wonder how many other relationships that I've messed up over the years because I only saw my side and not their side. Something for you to think about as well. How many people are you in a beef with? Are you angry with? But really, if we had the ability to put ourselves in their place, we might see that maybe they're not as bad as we think. Maybe. Honestly, I do have some fond memories of my stepdad. He even apologized to me on several occasions, which did help. After I became a mature adult with my own children, I began to be able to see why my mom still views my stepdad with fond memories. I did plan to give way more detail about how our stepfather rescued us and saved us from a lot of things that I didn't know at first. But when I was going over them, I realized that they were very personal to my mom, and it could be embarrassing to my mom. And this is my story, not hers. So if she ever decides in the future she wants to release me to do that or gives me an okay, maybe I'll go into those things. Otherwise, they're not really necessary for the story. Just take my word for it. From my opinion, I do understand why mom was a little more acceptable of the abuse we took from stepdad. Doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it acceptable. It still was wrong. I just understand it more. When I'm able to put myself in her shoes and see everything from her viewpoint, it is a little more understanding. And this is coming from the kid who was abused. I'm extremely grateful that I was able to have a good relationship with my stepfather before he passed. I even spoke at his funeral. Forgiveness freed me. Check this out.
Hi, my name is Tyree Evans. This is a quote from the Dalai Lama. All major religious traditions carry basically the same message, that is love, compassion, and forgiveness. The important thing is they should be a part of our daily lives.
Hi, my name is Anju, and I would like to tell you about a quote from Billy Graham. It goes like this: Man has two spiritual needs. One is for forgiveness, and the other is for goodness.
Hello, my name is Larry Thomas, and this quote is from Thomas Fuller. He that cannot forgive others breaks the bridge over which he must pass himself. For every man has need to be forgiven.
Hi, my name is Marie. This is a quote from Bernard Baruch. One of the secrets of a long and fruitful life is to forgive everybody, everything, every night before you go to bed.
Hi, my name is Dorothy, and I'm quoting Robert Mueller. To forgive is the highest, most beautiful form of love. In return, you will receive an untold peace and happiness. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
My name is Bridget Jeanette, and this quote is from Robert Brock. If you can't forgive and forget, then pick one.
The American author Marianne Williamson said, "Forgiveness is not always easy. At times, it feels more painful than the wound we suffered to forgive the one that inflicted the wound. And yet, there is no peace without forgiveness." Some years later, there was another very difficult test with unforgiveness. There was a family member that I believed had wounded me and my children. I began to develop feelings of hatred, even sometimes wanting them to die. Just the idea of forgiving them was painful to me. I couldn't see past the wound they had caused. My mind was overtaken with revenge. So even the slightest hint of God telling me to forgive immediately ended prayer. They needed to suffer. I was miserable, so they needed to be miserable. When I looked at them, I wanted them to be in pain like I was in pain. But they seemed to just continue going on with life without a care in the world, which pissed me off even more. One day, while ministering to someone about idols in people's lives, I think I was talking about how the children of Israel kept falling into sin and idol worship over and over again. A judge would come and rescue them, and then the judge would die, and they would go back into idol worship. And all this, I was talking to this person like, well, how we do the same thing nowadays. You know, we have idols as far as our houses, our jobs, our status, our money. After I was done talking to that person, I felt like I heard God say to me, "William, you got an idol too." I believe I heard him say, "You say you love me and obey me, but what about people who wound you? William, you have chosen an idol that causes you pain. You follow that idol's leading. You worship at the altar of an idol that harms you. They are your God, William." I believe God told me that I made those people my God. And proof of that was because they could get a response out of me that God couldn't. They could get me to do things that God couldn't. If it was ever a showdown or a battle against what those idols that I put up wanted, as opposed to what God wanted, the idols always won. And those idols were people who hurt or wounded me. I had made them my God. God would say to me, "William, forgive them, love them, care for them." But instead of obeying what God said, I obeyed what the idols said. The idols would push my button to get a response. And without fail, they got the response they wanted. People could push a button on me or push my buttons, and they could run my life for hours, for days, for months, for years. They could affect my entire life, my whole demeanor, how I reacted to them or other people. That's a lot of power to give to somebody. Examine yourself. Does anyone have that kind of power in your life? Can the mere thought of them change your day, change your mood, Do you refuse to forgive them even at the risk of your own health? If so, then they are your true God. Think about it. Let that marinate. After God said that to me, I had a paradigm shift, a new viewpoint. And this new viewpoint rocked me to the core. I couldn't stand them. So I for damn sure we're going to let them be a God in my life and run my life. Something had to change. Easier said than done. I felt so weak. The wounds, the anger, the pain was so deep and had been stewing for years, growing and getting stronger. I cried like a baby. I said, God, how can I do this? How can I let this go? How can I forgive? How can I get out of this? To remove these idols from my life. As I sat there crying and praying, I believe I heard God say, pray for them. Pray for good things for them. Pray that good things happen to them. Pray that they have the desires of their heart. Pray for their health. Pray only good stuff for them. Pray blessings over their lives. Oh my God. How painful just the idea of praying for that person. They needed to see how wrong they were. They needed to be punished for what they had done. They didn't need me to be praying blessings on them. With tears in my eyes, I began to painfully start praying for them. At first, I could only say, bless them. And it was like a knife to the gut. A couple days later, I was able to say, bless them again. Then the next day, I was able to pray for their health. And then as days went on, I would be able to add stuff like help them to be successful, help them to be happy. And it was still a struggle every day, but it got easier and easier every day. Eventually I could say, give them the desires of their heart. And I would start praying for specific good things that I want to happen to them. And it became easier and it became joyous and freeing. And they didn't know that I was praying for them, that I was speaking blessings on their lives. I'm not even sure if it affected them, but oh my God, it affected me. It began to change my entire life and my outlook on life itself. While I was praying for them, I noticed that my health got better. I began to keep getting blessings. Good things kept happening to me. I began having way more joy and peace. I thought that I was setting them free from prison, but really, I was setting myself free. As I began to forgive, I also began to see things from the offender's viewpoint. And I became more sympathetic and understanding. I also began to see how I was just as guilty, if not more guilty than them. But the pain and the wounds were so deep, I was so blinded by the veil of anger and resentment that I couldn't see clearly. I eventually completely forgave them. We are great friends to this day. I love them, they love me. That person is a great blessing to my life. It all started with forgiveness. The weight of forgiveness was heavy at first, but I had to keep curling it. Just keep curling the weight of forgiveness. And the more I curled it, the easier it was to curl. I had to press past the wound and the pain to be healed. Again, I thought I was fixing them, but I was really fixing me. Here is a quote from this guy named William E. Smith. He's a host of this crazy YouTube channel called Us Crazy Christians. He said, "Forgiveness of others is one of the greatest gifts I ever gave to myself." Check this out.
Hi, I'm Alicia. Josh Billings said, "There's no revenge so sweet as forgiveness."
Hey, I'm Emmanuel, and I have a quote from Mahatma Gandhi for you. The weak can never forgive Forgiveness is a trait of the strong. I hope that blesses you.
Hey, it's Renata. Lawrence Stern said, only the brave know how to forgive. A coward never forgave. It's not in his nature.
My name is Anthony Rios. This is a quote from Isaac Friedman. Forgiveness is the sweetest revenge. Remember that.
Hi, my name is Celine. This is a quote from Oscar Wilde. Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them as much.
Hi, I'm Roxanne. Louise Hay said, forgiveness takes place in our own mind. It really has nothing to do with the other person.
Hi, I'm Destiny. This is a quote from Robin Sharma. Forgiving isn't approving what happened. It's choosing to rise above it. Yeah, and I choose to rise above it. Do you?
Joan Baez said, as we know, forgiveness of oneself is the hardest of all forgivenesses. And this is true, even in my case. The absolute most difficult person I had to forgive was myself. To be honest with you, I'm still working on that one. I've caused my loved ones and even myself a lot of damage over the years. And it can be very difficult to forgive yourself, especially as you grow older and wiser and consequently discover more things you were wrong about. This channel helps me get over all the years of false teaching that I did. All the false teaching and false doctrine that I taught to my kids, to people in church, on street corners. I didn't teach it maliciously. It was out of ignorance. I thought that's what it meant. I thought that was right, but it wasn't. And because I became a father at like 19 and I was really young raising my kids, and I had a lot of bad examples of fathers in my life, I kind of made a lot of mistakes raising my children. And so whenever they make a mistake or make a bad decision that affects their lives negatively or hurts themselves, I tend to take the blame for that because of the way I parented them. And that is hard to forgive. I have to constantly remind myself, forgive yourself, William. It's okay. They're going to be fine. God got them. They're going to be fine. Forgive yourself, William. You can't help them if you're wounded. You can't help them if you're down. You got to get up. You got to keep moving. You got to keep growing and changing and being an example for them. And staying in an unforgiving state, in a state of depression or sadness or grief, you can't lead from that position. You can't be an example, or at least not a good example from that position. Forgiveness is pivotal for myself and for my children. Is it possible that we actually let ourselves off the hook when we forgive? Am I the only person that struggles to forgive themselves? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to see more from us crazy Christians, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're a returning guest and haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Plus, hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we post a new video. Share this video with somebody it may bless. Leave a comment. Is it possible that God is more loving and kind than we previously imagined? Thanks for watching. Until next time, be blessed.